And the Canadian men's national team also has a big schedule to end 2025 and then, of course, look on to 2026. But it's complete. They'll play Venezuela in Fort Lauderdale in November. Of course, the October window will be Australia in Montreal and Colombia in New Jersey. And they'll also face Ecuador in Toronto before that Venezuela match. So 2 home matches for Canada to end 2025. And then it's all eyes on 2026. We know they're going to play a World Cup preparation friendly in Montreal ahead of the tournament because Montreal, of course, didn't get tournament games. And there's been rumblings out of France that the French national team is looking to play the US and then one of Canada or Mexico potentially in March as well. And of course, Canada has already faced France in the March era. And that was very early on. It would be a very different test now. But it's starting to come clear what these next few months are going to look like for Canada up until that World Cup opening match at BMO Field, Brendan.
I think that Canada have a great opportunity to book France in March. I think that they are very appealing for the French. And also, I mean, we all say we'd love to see how Jesse Marsch's Canada stacks up against France when it's not his second game in charge ahead of what ended up being a program-defining Copa America for the Canadian men's national team. I think France want to see that as well. I think France want to see how they would stack up against this new Canada. So I to be honest, I understand why they want the States. They're going to book a big NFL venue. But I think BC Place, from a revenue perspective, BC Place should absolutely be in place for March. And I would argue that Canada is a more appealing test for France than Mexico right now. And particularly too, because part of this strategy is to acclimatize their players. And this is where when you can really get into the weeds with player safety and does this make sense and does it really translate over? But the travel of going to Vancouver for these French players is amongst the worst that you can have. And it's just about conditioning the body for that type of experience that I think, the clubs hate it. The clubs are already complaining about it. But I think from an organizational perspective, I think that really makes Vancouver and Canada an appealing option. I think they're a better test on the pitch. And I think logistically, which is what France is prioritizing with this March window, it also gives them a more realistic and extreme preparation.
Yeah, well, it makes a lot of sense for any team wanting to get used to North America, right? It's going to be such a unique World Cup in terms of travel, weather, everything, that it makes a lot of sense. So hopefully something works out. Because I know in that L'Equipe article I was reading that the big pushback is expected to come from the likes of PSG and Real Madrid, where a lot of French players play. Really interesting tidbit that actually last year in March of 2024, there was talks that they were going to set up a France versus Argentina friendly in Argentina, which, man, what box office that would have been. Mbappe versus Messi, maybe at the Bombonera or something like that. But then it was all but booked, and then Kylian Mbappe, Real Madrid, or I guess he was still at PSG, and a couple of the clubs just really pushed back against it, and instead they ended up playing Chile in Germany at home. So it's interesting that France, there's something they've been wanting to do to challenge their federation. Obviously, it's tough with the clubs who they want to keep a good relationship with. For Canada, I'm curious to see how this turns out because, look, in terms of the World Cup preparation I mentioned earlier, it's been almost perfect to this point in terms of what they could do with these friendlies. They've traveled away with these 2 Europe games and also faced European opposition. They've faced South American opposition before, and they're going to face a bunch. They get a couple home games, which is a plus. They're playing a bunch of teams in the top 30 of the FIFA rankings. That's a plus. The only thing they're really missing is they haven't played enough African or Asian teams for me, especially the African teams. Because I think just seeing the qualifying, seeing the style of play, I think Africa, people are going to sleep on how good these African teams could be set up to do in North America with some of the weather conditions and the style of play. And I'd love to see Canada play an African team. But other than that, they're missing like that jumbo test. Like who's that top 10 heavyweight that they've played since the France or Netherlands? And the other thing that it is worth watching, they've played under Jesse Marsch. They've played at BC Place once. If their World Cup goes to plan, they hope to play there 4 times. Purely from a football standpoint, it would also be nice for them to get used to that stadium. And like you mentioned, Brendan, size-wise, it could make sense to marry that idea that they need to play heavyweight, the idea that they need to play at BC Place. The only thing missing is get that damn grass in faster, because I think that's been one of the holdups that's denying that. Because Canada themselves, if you ask anyone who works the federation, they kind of see similar plans for next year.
The belief, though, is that BC Place will have grass for the entire MLS season. Yes?
That's the plan, but I think the plan initially at one point was to have it for this year.
It was supposed to be like in March of this year. Like it's supposed to have like almost 2 years of it. So things are always a bit slow.
And even that one game under Jesse Marsh that was at BC Place wasn't under Jesse Marsh. It was under Mauro Biello. He didn't coach that
But it was
game,
on grass.
It was on grass. But a definitely exciting upcoming schedule for the Canadian men's national team to wrap up 2025 and head into 2026.